What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of QnA, the show where I take your questions and answers from YouTube and Twitter and answer them here on this show. And remember, if you want to have your question heard, please hit the subscribe button and ding the notification bell so you can see the post on the community tab where I ask for these questions every week, typically every Thursday. So if you want to make sure your question gets seen, ask that question there, have your notifications on, and pay attention to the community tab because that's where the questions for YouTube will go. And then Twitter, I put out a post at the same time on Thursday asking for those questions on Twitter, and then I'll look down the replies and take my questions from there in both those spots. So remember, if you want your question heard, be sure to find the community tab post and ask that question there or ask the question on Twitter. But without further ado, we're going to start with the question from Slick Dog, who says, who is one player on each side of the ball for the Browns that you think will take the biggest leap forward this season? Offensively, it has to be Baker Mayfield. I think it needs to be Baker Mayfield. I think if Baker Mayfield takes a giant leap from his second season, a good leap from his first season, then good things are ahead for the Browns. So I think Baker Mayfield's going to take the biggest leap. I'm feeling that energy from Baker Mayfield. It just seems like he's going into this with a much better, much more healthy mindset than he did last season, much more focused. And it seems like this is a more stable situation for him, as well as having the offensive line to support him. So I do expect him to take a good leap. Now, on the other side of the ball, there's a few candidates for it. Realistically, I think Greedy Williams is probably going to be a strong candidate for this because he's going to go from being inconsistent in his first year to being really good in his second year, hopefully. Denzel Ward can be in this group as kind of a bounce back because he was a little inconsistent in his second year, but very dominant in his first year. But the person I'm going to also Mack Wilson. Also, Mack Wilson shouldn't be ignored for this leap because he looks like he can make a huge leap this year on defense. But ultimately, the person I'm going to go with is Myles Garrett because I think Myles Garrett is primed to have a huge breakout season. If you look at his injury history, this is going to be the healthiest he has been since he could not play to end the season because of the suspension. It's going to be the most healthy he's been to start a season, the most rested he's been to start a season. And at the end of the season last year, we were starting to see really the development in his game hit that next level. And I think he's going to be at a very high level to start this season. And he's going to have a lot to prove to people because people have been slandering his name and his football talents because of how his season ended last year. So I think Myles Garrett is going to be primed for a breakout season, which is crazy because before he got suspended, he was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. But I think he's going to be, if this is a regular season, I think he's going to quite honestly be the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year the whole season long. I think he can really take that big of a leap here in year 4 for him. Next question comes from RTR12. It says, what are your thoughts on the onside kick alternative being turned down? I didn't like the idea, to be honest. Now, I remember, I think it was the Alliance of American Football, the AAF, 2 years ago, they had the similar rule for the onside kick. I think it was 4th and 25. And, you know, for the Alliance, it wasn't terrible. Like, it was actually entertaining, but I also had to watch that from a perspective of I'm not a fan of any team in the Alliance. And same thing if it went to college football. I'm not really like a diehard fan of any college football program. I kind of just like college football more as a product than as a diehard fan of a team. So there, I would be fine with it. But then when we get to the NFL, I have some questions about it because 4th and 15 or 4th and 25, that seems too likely to be successful to feel fair. And it almost feels a little gamey at that point. And quite honestly, I don't want it to be any easier for somebody to come back on the Browns. It's just me being a fan at that point. So when I look at this as a fan, I don't like the rule. When I look at this as somebody who's just going to watch a bunch of football games, I do like the rule. So it has that interesting balance where I do think it would make the game funner to watch because more teams and more games would be close. But as a fan, it terrifies me. So there is an interesting balance. I do think something needs to be done to help there be an option, because the onside kick, it's just been legislated out the game. It's not effective anymore. There needs to be something that can hit at a similar rate to an onside kick that can be presented as an option for teams at the end of games when they need to make, an improbable comeback. So I'd like the ideal. If I'm not a fan of any particular team, but as a Browns fan, that terrifies me. So I get why it got voted down. Next question comes from Donut Nizzle, who says, do you think that if the Browns make the playoffs as the 7th seed, that there could be people in the media who would diminish that achievement, being that the 7th seed had been introduced this year? I mean, yeah, there are going to be people in the moment that are going to try to diminish this, especially like if the Browns, like it's weird because if the Browns got the 7th seed and lost to like Kansas City, it wouldn't be a big deal. Nobody would really try to diminish it. But if the Browns beat Kansas City or somebody, or Baltimore with the 7th seed, then it become this, well, they weren't even supposed to be here kind of asterisk, even though the Browns did what they proved that they belong. So it's going to be kind of weird in the present, sure, if the 7th seed got introduced. But down the line, like 10 years from now, nobody's going to care. Nobody, like, it's going to become so normal that there's 7 seeds. It's probably going to be 8 seeds at the end of the day. So I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think there's going to be a long-term asterisk placed on the 7th seed playoff berth. It honestly makes more sense that there's a 7th seed. I never thought 2 bye weeks made sense. No other league did something like that. So, yeah, I would say it's not going to matter in the long run. There's going to be people who don't like the Browns who are going to try to asterisk it, or if they don't like whatever team made it, they're going to try to make it an asterisk, but it doesn't hold. It doesn't matter. If you make the playoffs, you make the playoffs. That is what it is. It's the rules that you play under that season. The next question comes from Vault Dweller, who says, what do you think is a realistic expectation for Myles Garrett? I think he could reach 20 sacks if he played a full year and has good support online. I agree. I think he can reach 20 sacks. I think this is a double-digit sack year for him, which means 20 plus. I think he can really dominate. And I think the Browns defense, quite honestly, if they can't get something, and we're going to talk about Jadeveon Clowney later, but if they can't get something with Jadeveon Clowney, or, make a trade here for somebody like Jamal Adams to help out in the pass rush, and I know Jamal Adams is a strong safety, but watch my video on Jamal Adams, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if they can't get those options to help him, he's going to have to be the anchor of the whole ship, because we found out last year this defense starts and ends with Myles Garrett. So in order for this team to be competitive this year and be a playoff team, we're going to almost need Myles Garrett to be Superman on the defense, and I think that's what he's ready to deliver. And speaking of Jadeveon Clowney, next question is from Warren Ash. It says, with that report that Clowney has refused to sign with the Browns, should the Browns go after somebody else or say to double hockey 6 with Clowney? Oh, my God. Okay. Look, I get why people are upset with how the headline was reported and how the story was kind of shaped out of PFT. But let's be very clear on this report about Jadeveon Clowney. It was Adam Schefter saying he knows that Jadeveon Clowney got offered a good amount of money by the Browns, probably the most that anybody else is offered. And then he was speculating. He was giving his own thoughts and opinion, not reporting. He was speculating about why he hasn't accepted the deal. And there were multiple things he was speculating. Maybe he doesn't want to come to Cleveland was one of them. Maybe he's waiting till July was another one of them. We are making assumptions about Jadeveon Clowney and what he thinks about Cleveland before he has ever even made a decision. We need to wait until he signs somewhere to come to that conclusion, because I see a lot of people drawing conclusions about Clowney and his will to want to play for the Browns based off of one guy's speculation, opinion about the situation, not a report. Adam Schefter never reported that Clowney doesn't want to play in Cleveland. He speculated it. That's a clear distinction. This is not, we cannot speak about this as in fact. Now, if the question is, should we wait on Clowney or go after somebody like Griffin? I don't think anybody else that's not Jadeveon Clowney is really a better option than Olivier Vernon. If you look at Everson Griffin, he's really not that much of a different option than Olivier Vernon. So I think if you can get Clowney, you get Clowney, and you wait on Clowney. But if you don't, you have Olivier Vernon, who has the same potential on the defense as somebody like an Everson Griffin or an old vet. So that's how the Browns are playing it. That's how Clowney is playing it, because I'm pretty sure his people are aware of that too. And we're just going to have to wait and see, probably till late July, even later if training camps get pushed back, to see how things are going to shake out. Let's wait and see. Clowney did not really insult the city of Cleveland. Adam Schefter just speculated that he did. We need to calm down on that one. We need to understand that Adam Schefter was speculating. And quite honestly, I think it's irresponsible how this thing got reported from the local media on up, because they act like it was a report by Schefter. It was not. It was speculation. So that's my thoughts on the Clowney situation and how it was reported. Again, be patient. Let's see where Clowney ends up, and then form our opinions. The next question comes from Soldier King, who says, remembering Eric Metcalf, the Ice Cube, Josh Cribbs, the Rabbit, for their prowess in returning kicks and punts, who do you see on the Browns roster with that special talent? If there's anybody who's going to be that good or have that role on this team, it's going to have to be Donovan Peoples-Jones. He returned kicks at Michigan. I don't know if he did punts. I believe he did punts. But that's probably going to be the role that he's going to have to carve out to make the team. So Donovan Peoples-Jones is this year's candidate. Is he going to be that good? Probably not. Probably not. If he's just basically like can catch and not turn the ball over at those spots, he's probably going to make the team and be fine, because he's more of a developmental wide receiver than anything. But that's the guy. This next question comes from Henry, and he says, do you think Dwayne Haskins has what it takes to be a good starting quarterback in the league? No, I don't. I don't think he's going to be a successful quarterback in the league. I'm kind of surprised by that. I thought he'd be better than he has showed in his rookie year. Based off of what he did at Ohio State, I had my concerns about him. I always felt like he wasn't a dynamic leader. You know, against Purdue is really the game where I start to question that, because he didn't really do much on the sidelines to kind of get his team back into the game, and then also on the field. So I've always been lukewarm. I thought he would be better than this. I thought he'd be at least average on Dwayne Haskins. He has the physical tools. He has some things there. The problem with Dwayne Haskins is that sometimes he processes things a fraction of a second too slow. And that is a game-ending flaw for an NFL quarterback. So I really don't see him becoming good. He could be good. He could find a system that works for him better. I doubt that happens in Washington. But as far as being a good starting quarterback in the league, I personally don't see it for Dwayne Haskins. The next question comes from the Lander, who says Pittsburgh thinks they're a lock for a 10-win team. With Ben coming back, what are your feelings on that and why? I get if you're saying, hey, if Ben is healthy and he's playing at the form that he did in 2017 or whatever, 2018, then yeah, the Steelers can win 10 games. That's a reasonable opinion. My issue with how people are stating it as if Ben being back in 2018 form is some kind of a lock. It's not. This could be a disaster. This could be 6-10, 5-11 very easily, because Ben is old. He's coming off of a surgery that had to reconnect tendons to his throwing elbow, which is very significant. It's just the assumption that Ben is going to be back to being Ben Roethlisberger is the problem that I have for it. The idea that the Steelers can win 10 games with a healthy Ben, that doesn't bug me. The ideal that he is going to be a lock coming off this injury to be Ben Roethlisberger still kind of like flabbergast me. Hey, the next question comes from Pangas7, who says, considering the fact that OBJ and especially Jarvis will be recovering in training camp, how passable is it to see Donovan Peoples-Jones or Higgins at Ravens? And how winnable is the game without fans? I think it was a winnable game with or without fans. So I'm not going to factor that into my prediction. I already think the Browns are going to win that game. I think that they should, and they kind of have to win that game almost if they really want to prove that they can fight for the division this year. And for Peoples-Jones and Higgins, more for Peoples-Jones, because Higgins is going to his touches in the preseason and his snaps and reps in the preseason aren't really going to be affected. He's always going to be that number 3 option. But for Donovan Peoples-Jones, yeah, it's going to be significant for him and probably Damian Ratley as well, because they're going to get a chance to shine at the outside wide receiving positions. So, yeah, it could be significant. Maybe we find out Peoples-Jones is more ready than what you would assume a 6th-round pick would be. So, again, good question. Next question comes from Kevin Durant's burner account, who says, Denzel Ward or Marlon Humphries? This is a good question. Marlon is a little bit more physical than Denzel Ward, bigger than Denzel Ward, but he's not as fluid and as athletic as Denzel Ward. It honestly depends on the type of system and the role you need Denzel Ward or Marlon Humphries to play. Like, if you're talking about a traditional number 1 corner that needs to follow a guy, regardless of their size and height, across the field all game, you probably would go with Marlon Humphries, because, again, he has the size and the length and the physicality to handle big guys, and he's also fast and athletic enough to handle, guys like OBJ. So he does kind of have the edge there. But if you needed to cover like Tyreek Hill for a game, I think Denzel Ward is probably the best guy of the two that you want to cover him. So it changes with situations. They're very good, both of them. I don't want to just say flat one's always better than the other. There's different situations and different matchups that you would prefer Denzel Ward in versus Marlon Humphries. I hope that answer satisfies you. But that's all the questions for today. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.